the first to know. Nsem-Pii TV.
Nua oye court correspondence edi ema asaseradio.com. Yenua Wilberforce Asare I an interesting article with respect to Nioma Akoso ewo Supreme Court. Cases ahodo ya aba ewo Supreme Court. Ya efa the suspension and the process to remove the Chief Justice. And after other petitions, ebi abeka mampanyini nsa, ebi akwaka the Committee of Inquiry nsa. Now this same article, the law platform, and a akabli ya ono so yedwuma multimedia enso apeke. In fact, I summary analysis on it. Makani mi ensa nyina bom for educative purposes. Pesi yesua de kakra. Ene ruling ba bonten. Ya na ruling no General Kabila any the team about the suspension and intended removal process of the Chief Justice ruling the court 4-1 against General Kabila. But this educative piece goes beyond the 4-1. Actually, okay, can you mabumwa as things stand now? Cases ahodo miensa ya akopie mo Supreme Court with respect to 1, the suspension of the Chief Justice. 2, the process with which ya mampanyini peso of faso edi Chief Justice free hon. Say abeya 4-3. 4-3. Ya just say Supreme Court judges no emu ache say who edi enti na ma make sa. Now let's go to the educative analysis. Chief Justice said will be no Gertrude Araba Esaba Saki Tokonoo. Ghana man panyini His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is suspended on Tuesday the 22nd of April 2025. Na saa na montuo no Ghana man panyini 2 ye no. Nimdifo any emremo nimdifo chirima na grounded ewo Article 146 Clause 10 of the 1992 Constitution, where primarily it was inspired by 3 petitions. Ya Ghana man panyini nsa kan na offered the command the Council of State. Ya na seek the removal of the Chief Justice from office. Ya 3 petitions na a free group ba from Shining Stars of Ghana. Petition number 2, also a free Daniel Ofori. Ya no ekura 21 allegations. Shining Stars the ekura 14 allegations. And another petition number 3, also a Assistant Commissioner of Police Ayamga Yakubu Aklogo. Yana and also ekura 7 allegations. Now, since it's a Ghana man penyini I now say was suspended Yamame Gertrude Tokonoo. Now fe all trigger the process for the removal of the Chief Justice based on Article 146 Clause 6 to 10 of the 1992 Constitution. After receiving about 5 petitions seeking the removal of the Chief Justice, 3 different applications and the nipa hodo e file e Supreme Court ya na challenge the constitutionality of anamonwa na Ghana man panyini etuo with regards to the various petitions ananensa aka. Now, the first case that was filed at the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of adia man panyini ye na Altafo MP, the Honorable Vincent Ekwasefua. And the case near to this say Vincent Ekwasefua versus the Attorney General. The second one, and Supreme Court transfer na a citizen for citizenship, constitutional and electoral systems led by General Kabila versus the Attorney General. Ya no, your first defendant. Now the second defendant, Justice Gertrude Araba Esaba Saki Tokonoo. Ya wana na ejina case yi nyina mu. And the third defendant here, His Lordship Justice Gabriel Scott Palman, ya ono and a leader of the 5-member committee ya omu probu the Chief Justice. And the latest one and also in the Supreme Court to trans kanye Eye papa your friend no Theodore Kofi Atakorte and so against the Attorney General as the first defendant and a Justice Gabriel Scott Parman as the second defendant. Now interestingly, I had an analysis in a Let's look at the first case. In the first case, Supreme Court to constitute a 5-member panel. Yana omo ebetra matter no so na omo determine matter no pumasibie. Now, judges 5 were a constitute to the 5-member panel omo tra the case involving Vincent Ekwasifua as against the Attorney General in the suspension and the procedural removal of the Chief Justice. No, na one. Justice Paul Bafuboni, ye acting Chief Justice. 2. Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko. 3. Justice Henrietta Mensah Bonsu. 4. Justice Yoni Kulendi. 5. Justice Ernest Gau. The justices of the Supreme Court, Makuma Kunumi, and the Vincent Ekwasifua against the Attorney General. It was our case. Now, for the second case, presented by Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral Systems, represented by General Kabila, Dr. James Bonfen, against the Attorney General and 2 others. And after Theodore Kofi Atakwe versus the Attorney General and 1 Adam. And also Supreme Court constitute 5-member panel. No mutra cases. Now, so 5-member panel for these 2 cases. Now, Justice Paul Bafuboni again as the acting Chief Justice. Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko again. Justice Yoni Kulendi again. And the other 2, Henrietta Mensah Bonsuni and Esgawunu, SSI, Emma Justice Henry Anthony Kofi, and Justice Yao Asaredakon, Ebesi Womunina. And to Okani Yinaboma in total, just say 7 Supreme Court justices. These 3 cases are the suspension and the procedural removal of the Chief Justice. Now, to the second part of the educative piece. Over Vincent Ekwasifua, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Otafo constituency, ruling by a 3-2 majority decision. The judges say, and among His Excellency John Dramani Mahama made 2 edify Chief Justice the anon, trodo, fine, jamraso. And a me also Jina can say, as someone Vincent Ekwasifua diaba, with regards to say, what problem with 1, the suspension of the Chief Justice, 2, the procedural and among 2 towards the removal of the Chief Justice. 2 no so Jina say, Vincent Ekwasifua actually has a case. Now, say the kwaye. 2 ne dissente Justice Henrietta Mensah Bonsu and a Justice Ernest Gau. Justice Henrietta Mensah Bonsu and a Justice Ernest Gau. Meaning say 3 no a say the president kwanya onam so on papa. 1 Justice Paul Bafuboni. 2 Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko, and 3 Justice Yoni Kulendi. But you'll keep these names as we continue the analysis. It will be a 3-2 majority. And in the 2 cases and the Supreme Court to transfer, the one involving General Kabila's census and a Theodore Kofi Atakwe no so. A 4-1 majority decision. 4-1 majority decision. Now, and also Ushamwa, Justice Yao Asare Dako. And in all these 2 cases, and also a dissentee too, the other 4 no eka. Now, by this development, it is our considered opinion, say, the country's apex court. Currently, a crowd 12 actively serving justices. They say about 4-3. 4. And that's what I know say. And among His Excellency John Dramani Mahama 3 judges. And in all the 3 cases across the Supreme Court. For the first one, for the second and the third. Almost were dissented to the fact to say cases ahodo ba any nyina no, people had cause to raise alarm on the suspension and the procedural anamontua leading to the removal of her ladyship Justice Gertrude Tokonoo. Now, the views of the 7 are known because Omunyina had the opportunity to be empaneled to adjudicate 3 cases that have come before the Supreme Court this far. Now, the question that remains is whether the remaining 5 Omunya Kwan entrance Okrano ebenya the opportunity to participate in future hearings concerning the Chief Justice's removal saga. Any said your musu besi akira omadwen diafa because they say yenya 7 out of the 7, 4 abegina say His Excellency Anamotu ye papa. 3 are dissenting to that decision. Ye were 5 for mo the yen panel wo mo kra yen hu no mo nso adwenkyere edifa this case. Now, what is perhaps even more interesting and say 2 of the remaining 5 for mo transokra no enso members are almost constitute to the committee of inquiry that is probing various petitions. The establishment of the prima facie case against the Chief Justice. And no, Justice Gabriel Scott Palman and a Justice Samuel Adibuasiedu. The out of the 5 for Montana Sokra my own decision. A young meka 4 train on. A mu 2 dear committee among penalty, yes, or monya a committee on by inquiry into the prima facie case filed against the Chief Justice. Ya obey Yano. Justice Palman and a Justice Adibuasiedu. Now, interestingly, even with these 2, almost was sama ba because Enreya and also former parliamentary candidate for the Adentan constituency, Alfred Kumi Bio, and so the other 2 just say, Mianui, together with Yoni Kulenda on the Yam Panelino on 3 of these cases, plus a lawyer representing the petitioners. Akwakonya an alleged meeting at a restaurant. Now, and I'm so mono, sir, 2 from the 5. Omo was a committee of inquiry in Munintino. Automatically, they've been barred from sitting on any existing or future applications to the court relating to the possible removal of the Chief Justice into Scott Gabriel Palman, Samuel Adibuasiedu, these honorable justices of the Supreme Court there. Even if there are future cases presented to the Apex Court on this same issue, omu akwenya so betra so. Esane se omo the committee on inquiry. Ti wo yi to ni free 5 ni mu a just aka 3. Yeah, we are yet to know their decision and their fate on Nsem ayekoso. Now, the remaining 3 justices, the remaining 3 justices, in future related cases, almost between Yakwenya transform Yahu almost so adventure. And Yabeka 7 was a Sabaya 4-3 no. Her ladyship, Justice Avril Lovelace Johnson, His Lordship Justice George Kingsley Kumsin, and His Lordship Justice Richard J. Frimpong. Now, the dynamics get even more intriguing if we consider, say, President John Mahama nominated 7 Court of Appeal justices to the Supreme Court. Yeah, almost appointment, pending parliamentary approval. Yeah, no. Say Parliament resume sitting Yakupon Yaduma on the 27th May 2025. Sarah 7 nominees, yabe veto money approval on the Ababeka. Timinim say baby education ni ko nyina wati asia. Entino and now ruling nearby for 1 no. The Akoso Supreme Court goes beyond that too. Say you have 7 different Supreme Court judges. After 3 different cases are related to this same matter. The suspension of the Chief Justice and the procedural way of removing the Chief Justice. And these 7, Mamesa form within 2 judges. These 7, cases so 4. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama Namontuna Fan. 3 at the Sentinel. 1, the acting Chief Justice, Justice Paul Bafuboni. 2, Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko. 3, Justice Yoni Kulendi. 4 Justice Henry Anthony Kofi. 5 Justice Yao Asare Dako. 6 Justice Henrietta Mensa Bonsu. 7 Justice Ernest Gau. Out of the 7, omo dissent sisiano. 1 Justice Henrietta Mensa Bonsu. 2 Justice Ernest Gau. And 3 Justice Yao Asare Dako. And almost ejina the majority of fire aye 4 no. 1 the acting Chief Justice Bafu Boni. 2 Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko. 3 Justice Johnny Kulendi. 4 Justice Henry Anthony Kofi. Now interestingly, that is everybody mudi nyina no emu miensa a constitute a panel or matana all the 3 cases so. Waya Acting Chief Justice Paul Bafoboni, Justice Johnny Kulendi, Justice Isifu Omoro Amadou Tanko. And from this little piece of education, the Akoso Supreme Court say out of the 7 panel members, you might constitute the panel atna 3 different cases on the suspended Chief Justice. You say moon 9 and I am majority omo fuade mampanyini na anamo mampanyini 2 ye so based on certain articles of the constitution. Emu miensa and a dissent. Now we are waiting for miensa no a obunya kwanya entra so for future cases for them to be a panel near to your margin. That is a time no nyina na yakunu say the case na nkasa diplomacy bre ebesi agina. Now the multi-million-dollar question you say if say you were a case at the Apex Court. Now, out of 7 empaneled judges, emu miensa dissent. Na mu 9 jina di omu jina. Na out of 9 no miensa atra 3 cases ni nyina so omu nto omu to a. What does that say? Eno de ye wona abekire wadwene e wo the comment section. What do you feel? Say na feeling here with regards to the ekoso in all these cases for Supreme Court. And also, binya so abekire wadwene e wo the comment section. What do you envisage? Say ebesi within the justices of the Supreme Court, if say ochina bi process ni nyina go through, let's ye Chief Justice free ho. Na ye ura Paul Bafo Boni ya acting ye confirm no as the Chief Justice. What do you think will happen between these noble justices of the Supreme Court as entiasia kra about the ekoso nyina no enyina pi ni nyina no from the comment section.
Presided by the acting Chief Justice, His Lordship, Justice Paul Bafo-Boni. And then we also had Justice Isifu Omoro Tanko Amadou.
Sure.
There was Justice Yoni Kulendi and Justice Henry Anthony Kofi.
Okay.
And then Justice Yao Asare Dako.
Okay.
Now, omutie argument lawyers no make you know, come out with a majority 4-1 decision. I just say asemna ye de beda in court no, it was meritorious, and you ye dismiss no as such. It's and I almost afraid the second case court, and then that was what we had in mind, Senka. That was the one filed by Theodore Kofi Atakwe.
Yes.
Who among other things, asked the court to place an interlocutory injunction also on the committee constituted by the president to potentially remove the Chief Justice from office. Now, Sir Plaintiff, he also asked the court, to suspend the operationalization of the warrant of suspension President now issue against the Chief Justice under Article 146(10)(a) of the 1992 Constitution. Mm-hmm. Now, it was their case that warrant, before the president can exercise that discretion, I say instrument be APA, I say echo parliament. Not parliament, they consider it within some 21 days before the president will or can arrogate those powers to himself, for want of a better word, to issue that particular warrant. In the absence of that instrument, argument they say President, one far so and all they suspend the Chief Justice, and then the court should place again an interlocutory injunction pending the substantive matter itself. And also, court, on a brief recess, they pronounce a 4-1 majority decision. HSA Assembly is unmeritorious, and those applications or that particular application was also dismissed by the 5-member panel.
Okay, now and also the same 5-member panel now.
Exactly the same 5-member panel.
Okay.
Theodore case also the organization also case also the Center for Center.
Yes.
I can't really recall
census. You're trying to kind of census. That's the center. Center for Citizenship, Constitutional and Electoral Systems. Omo Penny Odano, the executive director of that center, Dr. James Kwabena Bonfe, and the organization.
Yeah. And yes. Just to chip in this one, so in the argument of Dr. Bonfe lawyer, he made the claim that the president has not given copies of the prima facie determination to the Chief Justice. But that particular case, now Chief Justice, I am suspended or no, also for a lawyer. The lawyer Kwabena Edukusi, or no representing Chief Justice, get to Tokonoo, because it is clear that the suspended Chief Justice, on any case, it doesn't align really with the case of the state. Into the Attorney General, in the sense of the suspended Chief Justice, Attorney General cannot represent her.
Yeah, but
the lawyer ever court.
Yeah, but more so, so we share the writ before the court now. Her ladyship Gertrude Araba Isaba Sakitokono, a party to this case. Only a second defendant.
Second defendant.
Yeah, once a party, she should be represented in court, and that's why the lawyer, echo,
Attorney General no representative, chairman of the committee now, president are established.
Okay.
That is Scott Poorman. And also representing the Attorney General.
Who was the Attorney General?
So Dr. Justice Nsem-Pii and I represent Dr. Dominic Ayine.
Okay.
I'm raising this point because there was a stark contrast between, initially that was how it appeared.
Okay.
Between the argument of the lawyer for the organization and lawyer for the suspended Chief Justice. Because, again, the lawyer for the organization made a point that the president has not furnished the suspended Chief Justice with copies of the prima facie determination.
Mm-hmm.
Now, lawyer Kwabena Edukusi, during Onone argument, he made the case that, in fact, there has not been any prima facie determination as far as his camp is concerned.
As far as the suspended Chief Justice is concerned?
Yes. As far as Ono lawyer is concerned, there has not been any prima facie determination made by the president. So, raised some concerns among the panel. Because Onono Nick client and Onumu Nankasa as lawyer, almost say they entirely support the position of the lawyer representing the plaintiff. Nti omo ba support to plaintiff no e court. Na plaintiff nankasa ka say president hasn't finished the suspended CJ with the prima